What have you not lived yet because you're so afraid of releasing what has already passed? Give yourself permission to live this new life. This is a question that feels like it's been waiting for us our whole lives. A question that cuts through the noise and gets straight to the core of our being. A therapist might pose it to a patient, or maybe it's a whisper you hear from your own deepest thoughts. For a long time, I heard that and believed it was about a simple act of willpower. Letting go seemed like an action, something you could decide to do with a firm jaw and a resolute spirit. It was about turning a page, closing a chapter, and just moving on. It felt like a decision. The problem was, this belief system kept crumbling every time I tried to put it into practice. I'd convince myself I was ready, that I'd moved past a lost love, a failed dream, or an idealized version of myself that no longer existed. But the pain would linger, a dull, aching phantom limb. I realized that my attachment wasn't about love or loyalty to the past. It was about something far more insidious. And that's when I started to question everything I thought I knew about freedom. I had to face a frightening truth. Maybe my role wasn't to simply let go, but to understand why I was holding on so tightly in the first place. The very nature of life is movement. It's a relentless, constant flow. Think of a river. Its water is ever moving, ever changing. The river carves valleys, nourishes life, and finds its way to the ocean. The flow feels inevitable, like it was always meant to be. But if we tried to dam up that river, to hold on to a single moment of its current, what would happen? The water would become stagnant. It would lose its vitality and its purpose. The river would stop being a river, and we'd be left with a festering pool, trapped by our own attempt at control. This is the great and often terrifying lesson of life. The past, our experiences, our memories, they are like the river's water. They were, and they flowed. What turns them into suffering isn't their existence, but our desperate attempt to build a dam and hold them in place. The pain of attachment isn't a testament to the depth of our love. It's a reflection of our profound fear. We are afraid of being empty, of not knowing who we are without that person, that dream, or that version of ourselves. The true art of living and the path to real freedom isn't about controlling the past or possessing the future. It's about learning to live with open hands, allowing the river of life to flow through and around us without trying to hold on to a single drop. The pain of attachment often begins with a specific kind of fear, the fear of losing ourselves. I heard a story once about a woman who had poured her entire being into a business that ultimately failed. She was left financially and emotionally bankrupt. People told her to move on, to start over, but she couldn't. The pain was more than just the loss of money. It was the loss of her identity as a successful, driven person. She saw her reflection in every dusty office space and every unanswered email. She felt like a part of her had died. In a conversation with a therapist, she expressed a feeling of having fallen into a goddamn void, of being completely unmoored and wanting to put her feet back on earth. Her pain wasn't about the business. It was about who she was without it. Her attachment wasn't to the company itself, but to the idealized, successful version of herself that it represented. The profound ache she felt was the fear of not knowing who she would be in the absence of that identity. Her pain was a grieving process, not for a project, but for a part of herself that she had to learn to release to find solid ground again. Attachment is a shield our ego crafts to protect us from a much deeper fear, the fear of the void within. The psychologist Carl Jung spoke extensively about this, how the ego, in its desperate attempt to maintain control and a sense of self, creates a fortress to keep out the chaotic unknown. We can see this in the stories we tell, the art we create, and the lives we live. The pain of hiding a personal struggle isn't just about the secret itself. It's about the constant vigilance it requires to prevent the truth from coming out. That pain can manifest as a deep sense of isolation, a feeling of being surrounded by people, but utterly, completely alone. Jung's work suggests that this profound loneliness isn't caused by a lack of companionship, but by our resistance to true solitude. When we resist the emptiness, our ego builds a prison. We become like a person in a taxi, surrounded by the bustling city, but completely alone, observing the world through a window that keeps us separate from it. This is the neurosis of attachment, turning our fear into a character. We become the person who is never truly present, always looking back, always holding on. The pain we feel is the exhaustion of keeping up that constant vigilance, of trying to outrun the void we fear so much. It's a universal struggle, the deep-seated resistance to facing ourselves in the raw. Another form of attachment is clinging to a life we were told to want, a life that no longer serves us. I know of a man who built a successful career and a beautiful family, ticking all the right boxes. From the outside, he had it all, but he was miserable. His pain wasn't about a desire for something different, but a refusal to release the burden of his own perfection. His identity was so intertwined with the expectations of his family and society that any deviation would feel like an act of betrayal. He was not just living a life, he was reenacting a script. He shifted his perspective, moving from the question, "Why do I work so hard?" to the more painful and honest, "Why am I so terrified of not being the person everyone expects me to be?" His attachment wasn't to his success, but to the approval and validation he received from it. He was a prisoner in his own life, a modern-day tragedy of his own making, filled with self-punishment and emotional despair. The only way out was to release the need for external validation, to let go of the idealized version of himself that was constructed for others. His liberation came from the realization that true peace isn't found in being what others want you to be, but in being who you truly are. Sometimes, attachment is a deep-seated fear of the unknown. I've known people who stay in jobs they hate, or relationships that no longer serve them, not because they love the situation, but because the alternative is a terrifying void. They cling to what is familiar, even if it brings them pain, because at least that pain is predictable. They transform a comfortable life into a gilded cage. Instead of allowing themselves to explore a new path, they build walls, create excuses, and constantly shine a spotlight on the past. They choose the known suffering over the unknown possibility. It's like standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing the landscape behind you is barren and dead, but refusing to step forward because you can't see what's on the other side. They had to change their way of thinking, to shift from a need for control to a willingness to surrender. In doing so, they learned that freedom isn't found by mapping every step of the journey, but by trusting that you will find your way, even in the dark. Finally, attachment can be a mask we wear to hide the parts of ourselves we fear. Think of a person who is outwardly successful and charismatic, but secretly feels like an imposter. They cling to this public persona because the alternative is facing their own feelings of inadequacy. The life they lead is an act, and the pain is the constant exhaustion of maintaining that performance. The suffering isn't caused by a lack of achievement, but by the relentless effort of keeping up a facade. This is the very essence of fear, clinging to a fabricated identity rather than accepting a true one. In this way, our success and our achievements can become our greatest prisons. We attach our worth to external validation, and when that validation is threatened, we feel like our entire world is collapsing. The most impactful transformations happen not when we find a new concept to chase, but when we get so tired of holding up the mask that we simply let it fall. So let's come back to that initial question. What have you not lived yet because you're so afraid of releasing what has already passed? Perhaps the answer is a life where we are not defined by our relationships, our careers, or our past selves. Perhaps the true answer to that question is to finally live the version of your life that only you can live. Letting go isn't about forgetting what was. It's about letting go of the fear that you won't be able to live without it. It's about letting go of the fear of being alone, of not knowing who you are without something or someone else. It's about letting go of the fear of losing your identity. Letting go is a profound act of self-love, a courageous choice to trust in your own resilience. True freedom and peace of mind don't come from control or possession, but from the ability to live, to love, and to dream with open hands. It's the profound wisdom of allowing life, like a river, to flow through you without trying to dam it up. Releasing the past isn't forgetting it. It's accepting that it doesn't have to define your future. And in that acceptance, you finally discover who you truly are.